So yeah, so for folks that don't normally attend our webinars, it will take about 24 hours, but we'll post the video once it gets rendered. So we'll post it. It'll be in the same place on the TEA recent webinars where you guys likely found this link. So if you want to review it or send it to anyone else, that's how you'll be able to get access to it. So, and you're good, Matt. You're showing your deck, so you're on.
Okay, awesome. Well, and you can hear me okay? Okay. Thank you, Ed, and everybody that's on the call. Thank you for joining us. I know we have an hour scheduled, and I'm not sure exactly what the entire agenda is, but I don't know that it'll take an hour unless we have that many questions that we can answer at this point. This particular presentation is specifically to give you information about supplemental special education services. I know that I have come on a call previously, probably back in November, to talk about it at a very high level. We're now ramping up, and I think a number of you have actually started communicating to your families regarding this opportunity. But I want to give you a little bit more information, as well as potentially ask for some assistance from each of the districts in how we can make sure that we're getting this information to the right families based upon what we're intending to do. So with that, I'll go ahead and move to the first slide. And I apologize if you have seen this slide before, but I just want to make sure that I give enough context for everybody that maybe hasn't seen it to know what the intent of this. Supplemental special education services are intended to give families that have children with significant cognitive and complex disabilities an online account that will help them to purchase either goods or services. And so who qualifies? Basically, all K through 12 students that meet the qualification. So the first thing is they have to be K through 12 students. They have to have been enrolled in Texas public schools during the 1920 school year, as well as during the 2021 school year. And that's really important because you could potentially have kindergarten students currently this year that are enrolled 2021, but they were in pre-K in 1920. Those students wouldn't actually qualify. And we've been receiving some questions on this issue since we went in our soft launch a week and a half ago. And that's unfortunately, we're not able to qualify them now. But as we look to expand this program, if there is opportunity to expand this program, then obviously those students would be people we're thinking about. Students that would qualify also, potentially they're students that have Down syndrome or cerebral palsy or autism or other disability types that are noted in their IEPs. And I'll actually go a little bit more into that in a little bit. So I'll talk a little bit about that. We prioritize students from low-income families. And so we have actually kind of earmarked a certain percentage of that. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. And then ultimately, I think you can kind of bifurcate the groups into two groups, K through 2 and 3 through 12. So your K through 2 students are a little bit more difficult to understand if they qualify or not. And it's because there are kind of multiple things that we have to look at to see that they would actually qualify. As far as 3 through 12, those are students that are Star Alt 2 eligible. So any of the students that you have on your campuses that are 3 through 12 that are Star Alt 2 eligible are qualifiers for this program. What is it? The program is an online account. I want to be clear, there is no actual money going to the families. It's an online account that's made available to the families to use at their discretion for approved services. And those approved services don't necessarily have to be approved by TEA or even the district. They just have to be educationally related. And in most cases, they're going to be tied somewhat to the needs of that student based upon the IEP. And we could talk, maybe there's some questions going to emerge from this call about that, but we're trying to give more direction on that aspect of it. As an example, they can purchase tutoring, they can purchase educationally related services such as additional OT, PT, SLP services, BCBA, but they also can purchase goods such as textbooks that might help a family, a parent, to working with the student on a certain need that they have, or curriculum, or other instructional materials that could be supportive. They can also purchase software or hardware that they may need in order to help their students with the learning that they see they're needing in this time of COVID. The numbers. So each family would qualify, or each student qualifies for $1,500, but that's per student. So a family would actually be eligible if they have more than one student for multiple accounts. For, you know, if they have 2 or 3 students that are eligible, which is actually occurring, they would be eligible for on a per student basis. So a family with 2 students would actually qualify for $3,000 for that family. There are approximately 18,000 accounts that are going to be made available. And then students, again, must have been enrolled in K-12 public schools during 1920. And they also should be enrolled in Texas Public Schools K-12 2021. And I just want to nuance that again, just to be clear, as we're talking to parents, I obviously use the idea of a person that was in pre-K and then moved into kindergarten during the current year. That child would not qualify. Additionally, a student that would have been enrolled in 1920 but left the public school system and went to potentially homeschooling or to private school or to some other, that they're no longer in the public school system in the 2021 school year, they would not be eligible. And then finally, students that came into Texas public schools in 2021, but they were potentially enrolled in another state or even in private school in 1920, those students would not be eligible based upon these criteria. Kind of walking through what the SS process is. So essentially, your families are going to go to a subcontractor that we have procured, and they'll input the information regarding we've tried to streamline the information to a minimum. So basically the student name, the school district, the school, social security number, or unique ID. So in some cases where a family says we don't really want to put the social security number, we have given them direction that they could reach out to the school to get their unique ID. But it is as simple as getting their social security number into the system. In addition to this, and it's not put on here on this particular part of the slide, they have to input their taxes because that's what will qualify them for purposes of income criteria. The next thing that happens is that application, once completed, goes to our office for us to verify that the student, in fact, does meet the requirement, the disability requirement of the program. And when that student does meet, we basically go back to the subcontractor and let them know, yes, the student is eligible, no, the student is not eligible. And all that does is the contractor now knows that they can send that family information that they're eligible and what their next steps are, or that they're not eligible. And then they can give them information about how they can reach out for more understanding of why they're not eligible. Additionally, we have the next step is once we provide them with a yes or no, then the vendor communicates that to the family. They also, if eligible, will communicate to them how to log on to their online account. So if the family is eligible, then they will be receiving from our vendor access to an online account and registration, secure registration for themselves, so that they can start the process of getting into the online account and making the purchases that are available to them. So the process for families, again, step one, they go onto the website. This is actually a little bit antiquated, but when I mean antiquated, like hours old, because this is the process as of right now, but within a few hours, we're updating our online landing page application so we can make it a little bit clearer for families on who qualifies and who doesn't qualify. But essentially, they get a program overview and eligibility requirements when they go on to the SSES.tea.texas.gov website. They get an overview of what that looks like. They also get an opportunity after they go through the overview of applying. So they click on apply online, and it'll take them to where they can apply online. And then step 3, once they've gone through their full application and received notice that they are eligible, they receive information on how to log on to the SSES services and marketplace. For step 1, like I stated earlier, and I want to make sure that I clarify, this is for students with disabilities, but it's not for all students with disabilities that have been identified under IDEA and have an ARD committee. It is specifically for students that meet the requirement of significantly cognitive disability and complex needs based upon the criteria that we set. We got a lot of information from a lot of you out there that we reached out to for the best way to define this. And so we've used all of that information to come up with it. But as an example, a student that may have an auditory impairment and also is receiving services in a self-contained classroom for more than 50% of their day. So they would have to have an auditory impairment and also be in a self-contained classroom for more than 50% of their day. If they're in that situation, then they would qualify for this particular program. But if they're not receiving it for more than 50% of the day, but they do have the auditory impairment, they would not actually qualify. And so that we have some, on our website, we actually have a significant amount of information to be able to walk everybody through this. But that is becoming the complexity of being able to guide families through all these criteria. We're trying to really streamline that for them at this point. So when you think about grades K through 2, that's where the complexity comes in, where you have the primary disability and then the setting. And then you also have designated as multiple disabilities, and all of you on this call know that designated as multiple disabilities is a very specific PEAMS coding that you enter, as well as designated as deaf-blind. So those would automatically, if in grades K through 2, if a student has that designation, they would qualify. And then in grades 3rd through 12th grade, the STAR Alt 2 eligibility is the basic criteria that we know that student would be eligible. So once a student is in grades 3rd through 12th grade, if they're STAR Alt 2 eligible, we'll know that they're in qualified for the program. Step 2, like I said earlier, basically they apply online, students' primary disability and educational setting or STAR Alt 2 participation. They have to just input their kind of basic information as well as their tax information, and then that will be submitted to us for us to verify that they're eligible. 70% of the accounts, I mentioned this earlier about our prioritization on low-income families. 70% of the accounts have been earmarked for low income. 30% of the accounts have been designated for open to all families. And why we're saying 30% open to all families is if we exceed 70% to low-income families, that is okay. But we are designating 70% of the accounts to go to low-income families. Step 3, the services, it's like an online wallet. You can go in and you can select from qualified tutors as well as educational service providers, OT, PT, SLP providers, things of that nature. In the SSES goods, it's similar to like going to a mall or even going to Amazon. But to be clear, Amazon is not part of this marketplace. But if you think about Amazon, they have a variety of resources that you can purchase for, but think about it from being only educationally related resources. And that's what the families will get access to. So it could be anywhere from books and curriculum-based items to computer programs or even assistive technology devices that are available within the marketplace. So just wanted to give you kind of a little idea of what we have. So far, this is as of yesterday. we have about 1,500 approved applications, but 34% of the overall applications are coming from K-2. So you can see that there's a strong demand in that area. Now, this has come out purely from our soft launch, our initial press release in October, and I think a number of districts sending information that it's available, and the application to their families, but not necessarily as nuanced. But what you can see is, as students get older, there seems to be we seem to be getting less applications, and there could be a number of reasons for that. But we want to try to mitigate that with as much information as we can. This is the total number of eligible applicants by grade level, and then this is the total distribution of applications by grade level and economically disadvantaged versus non-economically disadvantaged. Right now, we're hitting at about a 67% or 67% of the applications are economically disadvantaged versus not economically disadvantaged. So we're not trending in the distribution that we want as far as prioritizing for low-income families, but we think we have a way to adjust for that also by earmarking the number of applications that are available to low-income families. So one of the things that we have is the overall goal of about 18,000 accounts created out of about 93,000 students are eligible for this by June 30th of this year. What we want is a campaign that we can actually ask you to help us with, and I'll talk a little bit about steps that we have in this, that you could help us with by us creating some kits that we send out to you that are modifiable. You can definitely modify them to put your letterhead and logos on them and so forth, but they could be used for informing very specifically the families that are already eligible. And I'll talk about that in just a second. But such as a flyer that's a backpack stuffer, a letter or email to eligible families, text messages, emails to eligible families. We have talked about social media posts that we're going to potentially post and that we would ask you to retweet or repost on Facebook or what have you. But we're starting to circle back on the social media aspect of it, simply because that's a lot less to nuance the specific criteria. And so when we do that, we're concerned that people hear special education, they know that their child is in special education, but they don't actually know the nuance. And so we get non-qualifiers applying, and that's not beneficial for them or for the program. So how can you help as the LEAs? And what we're asking you to do, and we're trying to do as much of this for you so that way you could help us with this, is in step one, you'll receive correspondence from us that contains the campaign kit. So basically, here are the kits, here are the things that you have available to you. Use one or all of them as you see fit at the local level to send out to the specific families. The email will also tell you who you're eligible, or when your eligible student list will be in the Ascend platform. So the Ascend platform is the same platform you use for the review and support system within the monitoring and the self-assessment. And so in that email, you'll also be notified that your information is in the Ascend platform for your district or charter. Then if you log into that Ascend, you can download the spreadsheet with the list of students who are eligible for SSES. And then we would ask you in step 3 to use the materials received as we sent them to you to send out outreach materials to the eligible students and families. So essentially how you could help us is essentially by sending out that information to our families. And it would be very targeted. So it wouldn't be to all students with disabilities. It wouldn't be to all families of students with disabilities. It would only be to those families that are eligible for this particular program. And then next, what we have is our SSES information. And this information is the email. We have people that are working to answer these emails basically in time. I think we're turning it around within 24 hours and probably now within an hour of an email coming in, we're being able to turn those emails around and answer these questions. We also have our SSES website, which is sses.tea.texas.gov. And then soon we will have a list of students that are available in the Ascend platform. So it's a secure platform that only you as your district have access to that particular list. And so you'll know exactly which families would be qualifying for this particular program. I didn't want to do that. And with that, that's all I have for the presentation. So I don't know if we had some.
We definitely have questions. So a couple that I'll address right now, our anticipated timeline is that the rosters will be loaded into Ascend by 1 week from today. So by Thursday, the 28th, everything should be loaded into Ascend. Once it's loaded into Ascend, we will then send out a note to LEAs as well. And with that note, we'll include information on the media kits and the contact kits that Matt just mentioned. Though that email will go to whoever is designated as the district contact that got the notice for this webinar, and when we as a department send out notices about the webinars and information, whoever gets that email from TEA is the same person that will get this email that we're talking about. Ascend is the monitoring platform. It is the review and support monitoring platform that you access through Teal. All LEAs have access to that and set up accounts, and that's where the self-assessment is done and everything is done related to monitoring for special ed. We're using the Ascend platform because, one, we know it's behind the Teal door, so it's secure. Since we're going to be dealing with protected information, we wanted to make sure we're using a secure platform that everyone has access to. So that's why we're using the Ascend platform. If you have questions about the Ascend platform or how to use it, I would suggest you outreach either your ESC or your contact regarding review and support, whoever that is designated. So a couple questions we got, Matt, that Kelly and Matt Goodlaw, Kelly Goodman and Matt Goodlaw, who are very involved in this project, were helping answer questions as we went. Okay. So here's one question that, and Matt and Kelly have the ability to chime in too. If a student, here's the question, I'll read it. Can you clarify if a student had been receiving special ed services for both years? For example, if they were kinder last year and went through a referral process but did not get placed in special education until this year, now as a first grader, would they be eligible?
They would be eligible. Well, I'm gonna have to look at our methodology. We may not have identified them. So they may not be in our list, and so we'll have to circle back. So if that's the case, so they have demonstrated need, COVID obviously impacted their educational program, but now in first grade, they are now eligible. They could still appeal that process. So they wouldn't, I don't believe that they'd be on our list. We'll have to circle back on that because I don't want to, we may actually have them on our list of eligible students, but my inclination is they probably wouldn't be on our list. And if they're not on our list, there's still the ability to appeal that if they would be eligible through an appeal process. And so that would be something that you might want to guide them to in the application process, because here's the thinking. As long as they were enrolled in public school last year, K-12, and enrolled in public school this year, K-12, and they meet the eligibility requirement currently. So we would have to look at that closely to make sure that we can properly address that. Those are some of the outliers that obviously the data sets don't really completely get to, that we have to make sure that we can circle back on.
Another question we got was, if a family has not, obviously a family has not submitted their 2020 taxes, but if they had a significant loss of income from 2019 to 2020, that they would now be eligible as a low income status, but they don't have their 2020 taxes, would there be any ability to appeal or justify that after the fact if they got denied?
Yes. Now, just to be clear, at this point, we're not close to topping out on our available applications. So if a family's in that situation, they likely wouldn't have to appeal. But if it came to a point where we've already filled all of our open applications, then that would be an opportunity for them to appeal. Now, just to be clear, we've actually already had a few families that have reached out to us in that particular situation that we've been able to work through this situation.
Any citizenship issues related to taxes? Do they have to be? Will citizenship be an issue?
I mean, if there is an option, but this is where the option has to be, like everything on here, you have to be fully transparent about it. So there's an option of if you filed 2019 taxes, you have to submit them. If you did not file 2019 taxes, then there is an option to say did not file 2019 taxes. But even when citizenship issues come up, there are people that are filing taxes and they do have an ITIN number, and so they do actually file those taxes, and for those families, they would still be able to submit. We have some of those issues already occurring. I mean, we don't know anything about their citizenship. We just know that they have ITIN numbers and not Social Security numbers.
So students and Matt answered, Goodlaw answered this question. So, so for students that are in transition programs or life skills programs, overage programs, as long as they haven't graduated, and they would still be considered 12th graders.
That's correct. As long as they have not graduated, they're still considered 12th graders. And so they would still be eligible for it. So we're actually not limiting age, the age of the student, as long as they're still enrolled as a K-12 student.
So someone asked, should we only have families apply if they're in Ascend? So the list we send out in Ascend, should they only apply if they're on that list?
No, well, yes and no. I'm actually being very, very understanding that you as special education directors and people shepherding this process have many, many things to do. And so what I would like to do is ask that if you know that there's a student or a family that's not in the program, but you believe that they are in fact eligible, that one of two things, you could send them the information to apply, or you could send this particular information to us, and we could reach out to them as well. I think that there are a couple of ways to do that. Especially, I think it's especially important because you know the students and the families better than we do. So if you believe that the data is missing a child, absolutely surface that with the family or with us, because we're happy to work with that.
Somebody asked again, can you briefly review again the requirements or highlight them?
Okay. The first requirement is that the student was enrolled during the 1920 school year, and when the COVID school closures impacted school districts, and that they're also enrolled currently in the 2021 school year. So that's the universal requirement for every single student. The next step is, does the student qualify for Star Alt 2? If the student qualifies for Star Alt 2 and they were enrolled during last school year and this school year, then automatically they're qualified for the program. And remember that they're K-12 students. So give me just a second as I'm continuing to, I'm going to simplify my explanation. And the next step is taking into account that they were enrolled last year and this year, The next step is if they're not star alt 2 because they're in K2, then do they have a designation in K2 as deaf blind? And if not that, then do they have a primary disability? And there's a list of primary disabilities that will definitely be available on our website, as well as a setting that would show that they're not that they're in a self-contained setting for a good portion of the day, in a residential setting for a good portion of the day, in some type of setting that is outside of the general education setting for at least 50% of the day. So a combination of setting as well as primary disability in K through 2 would also qualify them. And that's a very simple way to look at it. And we on our website, we actually delineate that pretty clearly.
Can a parent be denied can a parent be denied based on income?
Income will not become a denial until we run out of open slots. If they have too much, if they're not low income, we've designated 70% of them to be low income and 30% to be open slots. So at some point, at all points, there are families that are going to be they're not going to qualify based upon the slots running out, the number of available applications running out.
How does a provider get approved for the marketplace?
They can submit it through our website. We actually, on our SSES website, there's a link for them to be able to submit if they're interested, and then they go through a vetting process to make sure that first of all that they have the type of platform that can allow them to be on the marketplace. Second of all, and that platform's not, they don't actually have to function in that platform, but one of the things that, so that's the first thing. The other thing is, if they're a vendor that sells goods, they have to, they can only sell educational goods. They can't just sell like general goods. And if they're a service provider, they have to meet all the state licensure, service provider licensure requirements. So if they're a company or a group that own or that provide SLP services, they have to meet all of the state of Texas SLP licensure requirements, so forth. So basically, they have to meet all of the state of Texas requirements.
It's like the last question I have is, if we know we have families that would be eligible now, do we have to wait to the Ascend list, or can we help them apply now?
Oh, absolutely, help them apply now. This call, the Ascend list is just to help you and take hopefully take some of that work off your plate. But if you know of families that will be eligible, please let them apply now. Send them the information. Also, I just want to add, I don't know if April Estrada is on this call, but I know that Justin and myself met with her last week, and SpedTechs will be helping support some of the technical assistance on this. So one of the things that you can definitely do is after we get them kind of trained up on some of the details, people can reach out to them for some technical assistance. Also, we have technical assistance within the TA office to support. So we're really kind of rallying around this effort to make sure that when families have confusion or uncertainty or anything like that, or you have any confusion or uncertainty, that we can rally around and answer emails as quickly as possible.
April said she was on, so.
Yeah, I saw that pop up.
There is,
There is a question about helping them apply or send the information. I do know that in PSJA, Veronica Quintana has started helping her families apply because one of the things we're not requiring you to do is help the families apply, but you can help them apply if you want to. If not, we believe that we've created an online system that is relatively self-explanatory, and we're trying to actually make it even more self-explanatory as we move forward. And we've had a pretty good amount of people being able to follow through. The biggest things that people are having is if they don't have a social security number as the parent, what do they input? And we can give them guidance on that. We're not actually requiring the parent to have a social security number. I think this is just jogging something that came up. If the parent doesn't have a social security number, all they have to do in the area for the parent, they have to enter a 9-digit number. For the child, they do have to have either the social security number, their S number, or the unique ID. But the parent, if they don't have an SSN, they can just enter a 9-digit number. Now, because that number is actually irrelevant to qualifications. There's a question that came, is there a way to see the list of service providers in our areas? I want to say yes, but with pause, because we have to work through that. So if the idea would be yes, but let us work through how we determine that to be able to do this. I think that over a period of the next couple of weeks after we get this full scaled out and parents are applying and so forth, then we can do a little bit more about what's available in all the different areas.
so a service provider applies by outreaching us at the SSES contact, and that's how they'll start that process.
That's correct. There's another question. Will there have been a documented need for the related service if the service requested of the parent? This is where, and I'm just kind of seeing some of you cringe a little bit. There's not a requirement that the IEP itself documents the need. It just has to be educationally related. We know that what we're getting is most of the parents are wanting to kind of just mitigate some of the issues that happened during the spring and early part of this school year. But there's not a requirement to do that. The other thing that I want to make sure that I think Veronica really kind of like surfaced with me is as a district, if you walk through the process with the family, there's a lot better opportunity for you to guide them toward the type of services that they may need, and that you have relationships with these families, so that could be beneficial in so many different ways.
When do we anticipate that we'll start dispersing and releasing funds? How soon do you think that'll happen?
It depends on applications. So it's all on the individual applications, and we'll be doing it in batches. So we're getting ready to probably start releasing the first batch of funds in the next couple days. That the process, I think this is a really good question though, just to be transparent, just because the process can take a bit of time depending on completion of applications and all of that. It could be from start to finish about 30 days for a family to see any funds. So I think that's something that they'll want to know. That's something that we disclose in the application system as well, that just because they put in the application, that they're not going to get the funding, even if approved immediately, because there's a little bit of a process to go through.
Okay, I think that is the bulk of the questions. So again, we will, as we talked about before, we will get the lists into Ascend next week. Once the lists are in Ascend, we will send out that email to the our SPED director list or SPED contact list, and it'll have that marketing information in it. My goal is also what we've set up is on that same TEA upcoming webinars. Next Thursday, we're going to have Jacob Klett from Review and Support on. He will actually go into Ascend and show you how to pull up that list and where to find it in Ascend. We're trying to make this as easy as possible for you guys to support families and knowing which families. So the goal is obviously all of that would be done by Thursday, so you'd be able to see it. Again, Jacob will be on next Thursday to kind of show people where in Ascend to find it. And I think that covers all the questions. Like I said, we will post the PowerPoint and the video recording within 24 hours. It takes about that long for Zoom to render it for us and do everything it needs to for getting through the accessibility processes. So it'll take about 24 hours. So hopefully by close of business tomorrow, it'll be up. And use the SSES email if you have questions. We're excited about launching this. And Matt, do you have anything else?
I don't. I just really appreciate all of you jumping on this, and we're looking forward to serving. I know that this is kind of just a small way for us to give service back to families and give them an opportunity to close some of the gaps that they experience with their own children, and actually to support you in a way in helping them. But we appreciate any and all support that you can give us in this process. I think it's going to be super beneficial for our families and give them a little bit of an opportunity to feel like they can mitigate some of the lost learning that they had. So with that, I appreciate everybody jumping on this call, and Ed and Justin and Jennifer for hosting it, and looking forward to our next conversation. Next time we talk, we'll give you some updates and let you know how things are going, and I think it's going to be really positive for us.
Great. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.